The world has reached a critical juncture, according to Klaus Schwab, who has ordered world governments to begin jailing and re-educating anybody who opposes the globalist agenda. According to Schwab, human history is now officially over, and anybody who disagrees with the globalist agenda must be cancelled, deplatformed, arrested, and imprisoned as an example to the rest of society. This evil plot against humanity has been in the works for years, and now we're seeing the first signs play out before our very eyes. Klaus Schwab has become increasingly bullish about his plans to hijack humanity, destroy sovereignty, and brute force a world government upon the world. According to Schwab, we have now reached the point where anybody who takes a negative, critical, or confrontational attitude to the plans of the WEF must be dealt with harshly.
We need to overcome the most critical fragmentation. And the most critical fragmentation is between those who take a constructive attitude and those who are just bystanders, observers, and even go into the negative, critical, and confrontational attitude.
Klaus Schwab's unelected globalist agents have been instructed to disseminate the instructions in international forums. Former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who now serves the WEF full-time, told the UN Climate Summit in New York this week that free speech is a weapon of war, and anybody caught speaking their mind on sensitive globalist subjects must be punished accordingly. Ardern went full Orwell when she claimed that censorship is necessary to protect free speech.
Mis and disinformation online, a challenge that we must as leaders address. Sadly, I think it's easy to dismiss this problem as one in the margins. I can certainly understand the desire to leave it to someone else. As leaders, we're rightly concerned that even the most light-touch approaches to disinformation could be misinterpreted as being hostile to the values of free speech that we value so highly. After all, how do you successfully end a war if people are led to believe the reason for its existence is not only legal but noble? How do you tackle climate change if people do not believe it exists? How do you ensure the human rights of others are upheld when they are subjected to hateful and dangerous rhetoric and ideology? The weapons may be different, but the goals of those who perpetuate them is often the same: to cause chaos and reduce the ability of others to defend themselves, to disband communities, to collapse the collective strength of countries who work together. But we have an opportunity here to ensure that these particular weapons of war do not become an established part of warfare.
Some things don't change. Ardern spent her time as Prime Minister of WEF-infiltrated New Zealand trying to convince the population that government is the only source of truth.
We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. We will share everything we can, everything else you see, a grain of salt.
Orwell warned us that the elite would try to convince us that up is down, men are women, and war is peace. How right he was. And now we're starting to see the evidence of this vicious policy play out before our very eyes. After this quick break, we will reveal the legal manoeuvres the elite are making to imprison you for the crime of speaking the truth. But first, an important word from our sponsor. How can the elite justify taking away freedom of speech and imprisoning anybody who speaks out against their agenda? According to Klaus Schwab's right-hand man, Yuval Noah Harari, the elites don't need to justify anything because we've reached the end of human history. That's right. Harari has declared that human history is over. The elite are determined to turn themselves into gods, while at the same time depopulating the global population.
It is the end of human history. Not the end of history, the end of human-dominated history. History will continue with somebody else in control.
If this sounds crazy, you must understand who we're dealing with. Klaus Schwab and his cronies are operating with the belief that they are literally gods. According to Harari and his colleagues in the WEF, that something else is the globalist elite and the techno-communist world order. And in this dystopian vision of the future, there's simply no place for debate or alternative opinions.
If it was a question of, humankind versus a common threat of these new intelligent alien agents here on Earth, then yes, I think that there are ways we can contain them. But if the humans are divided among themselves and are in an arms race, then it becomes almost impossible to contain this alien intelligence. And there is, I'm tending to think of it more in terms of really an alien invasion. That like somebody coming and telling us that, there is a fleet, an alien fleet of spaceships coming from planet Zircon or whatever, with highly intelligent beings. They'll be here in 5 years and take over the planet. Maybe they'll be nice. Maybe they'll solve cancer and climate change, but we are not sure. This is what we are facing, except that the aliens are not coming in spaceships from planet Zircon. They're coming from the laboratory.
While the majority of the population will be left to fend for themselves in a desperate fight for survival that most will lose, those who've been designated upgraded humans by Davos will be saved by what the WEF is calling their technological Noah's Ark. Klaus Schwab's agenda is already being rolled out in infiltrated nations, including the UK, where the British government has ordered law enforcement officials to arrest and prosecute citizens who share so-called fake news and opinions on the internet. Following the passing of the online safety bill this week, UK authorities now have the power to punish citizens who share anything deemed hateful or labelled as misinformation on social media. The UK's Office of Communications will have the power to issue criminal fines of up to £18 million. That's roughly $22 million on non-compliant citizens and companies. And hidden in the small print, the government has given itself the right to imprison citizens who refuse to fall in line with the globalist agenda. At the same time as these developments in the UK, the WEF has urged governments to build COVID concentration camps worldwide to imprison citizens who refuse to go along with the official narrative. It's no surprise that New York is the first US state to forge ahead with the instructions. As Rochester first reported this week, oral arguments were held in an appeal case over quarantine regulations by the New York Department of Health, over a regulation that would allow the Commissioner of Health to issue isolation or quarantine orders to control the spread of a communicable disease. This is a similar tactic that was used in Nazi Germany during World War II, when Jews and gypsies and other undesirables were said to carry diseases and were forced into concentration camps. Apparently, those that refuse to inject COVID-19 biological weapons injections will be targeted. This is a truly disturbing development. We know the globalist elite have plenty more pandemics up their sleeve because they keep telling us about them.
We'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time. Mm-hmm.
The globalist elite can't stop talking about their plot to depopulate the world, and now they're becoming specific with their plans. The 1% of the 1% and their sympathisers in business and politics all seem to be in agreement that the Great Reset is a great idea, and the fact that no ordinary person shares their enthusiasm doesn't seem to bother them one bit. But the future does not belong to them, and the people are slowly but surely waking up to their agenda. Here at The People's Voice, we are determined to continue exposing the elites, but we need your help.